Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Macarthur this morning. We've got a very, very special guest, Josh Cotter from Rise Above. First of all, I'd like to thank all of our regular sponsors and contributors, Coleman Greig Lawyers, Fitzpatrick Robinson Group Accounting and Business Advisory Services, Richardson and Wrench, Mount Annan and Narellan, Wakeling Automotive Group and TechnoFunc Fitness Studios. Good morning and welcome, Josh Cotter.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming aboard, mate. It's great to get some local people that are doing great things on the ground for our community. But before we get into Rise Above, we might just find out a little bit more about Josh Cotter himself. So, where did you grow up?
Grew up right here in Campbelltown. Born and bred in Campbelltown and been here all my life. Haven't left. And as you can tell, I'm probably pretty proud and want to continue to build my family. I've already started a family here with my wife, and we want to stay in this community and going forward.
Yeah, fantastic. Kids?
Yeah, we've got one daughter, Giselle, who was born nearly 11 months ago.
Awesome. Coming up to the first birthday party. First birthday parties, mate, are not for the kids, they're for the parents. So you'd be pretty happy that we're getting out of lockdown.
Yeah, 100%.
Because Giselle won't remember her first birthday.
No, exactly right. Only the photos that we show her in the future, I think.
Yeah, 100%, and they'll be good photos. In 2011, you had the honour of being named Campbelltown Youth Ambassador. What led up to that?
So it was a bit leading up to that, Mark. There's, I think if I start from the start a little bit, just to give a bit of a background to it, my family migrated here over 50 years ago from India. Both sides of my family. We are of Anglo-Indian descent, so a bit of Portuguese Indian on my mum's side and a bit of British Indian on my dad's side. That's where the Cotter name comes from, I guess. And they migrated here for a better life, and we owe a lot to our grandparents for that, for taking that brave step to come to Australia. And that's what's provided the foundation for everything that we've been able to achieve here, them taking that step, and then our parents taking their step to also want to work hard and take every opportunity they possibly can here in Australia. And my parents had their first house in Minto, where we first started, and I still remember the floors in that house. We couldn't afford at the time to put down floors, and then finally we put the lino, as you probably know, those floors back in that time. So building on that foundation, I was able to then go to Our Lady of the Christians primary school at Rosemeadow. Before that, I did start at Holy Family at Ingleburn, but then I changed over to Our Lady of the Christians. And I guess throughout that time, I got involved with a lot of things in primary school and started leading towards that leadership kind of role and wanting to sort of see if I could be school captain. I got to there and I had that moment of where I failed to become school captain to my best friend who won it, which I was very proud of him as well. But I failed that in year 6. And we're talking 20 years ago now, but it's that fail there, I think, was a really good point for me to then start my journey into high school. From year 7 to year 12, I started really thinking about how can I improve some of the things that I had done and build upon some of that leadership qualities that I had, but also find myself in that time in high school, as I work with a lot of young people now, and finding yourself in your journey and where you belong in the world is very hard in that process. So got involved with SRC, volunteered my time as much as I could within school, sports. I played a lot of sports growing up as well, got involved with that. And then it led me to year 11 and 12, that time where I had built up a profile of volunteer work, helping out in the school, being sports captain in terms of, sporting teams and things like that. And I was able to get the honor of being John Terry school captain in 2011. So through that leadership, I wanted to really make a difference on that year. And as you know, is from term 4 to the following year, when you are in year 11 going into that year 12 period, you haven't got much time with that HSC period there. So I really wanted to make an impact and try and do everything I could in those months before we had to hit our HSC. So I created the Macarthur Schools Youth Forum, which brought together all different MPs, local politicians, federal, state as well, and then also people from the Catholic Education Office and different leaders within the community to come and speak to all our different schools. We had them all congregate at John Terry. And I had the support of some great teachers and some great leadership, and as well as some of my fellow captains in that. in that event in itself. And that event, I guess, was the first of its kind. There had been some more, I guess, social youth forums around, but there hadn't been this type of event bringing these community leaders together. And that's what led me to being able to go into my job at Catholic Education Office, because on that day I had Peter Turner, who was the director of schools, come on that day. And I also had other various community leaders that were there. And that's what led me to going into my job, because Peter Turner said, come and see me after your HSC and let's discuss how you can become involved in schools, because he saw my passion for wanting to work with youth. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I wanted to help young people and be of service to community. That's all I knew. So I did that after my HSC, went and met with Peter, and this led me to my job now. 10 years later, I'm still here, and also led me to the 2011 Youth Ambassador and 2012 Young Citizen of the Year for Campbelltown City Council. So that's the lead up period there, but it was all based upon service to community and helping our young people. It was nothing, yes, I might have received the recognition, but I never set out to be recognized for it. It was just about helping people.
And most people who are recipients of that sort of honour don't go out to seek that sort of accolade. It's about the work that you do, and I commend you. That sounds like an absolute fantastic initiative that you put forward there. Sometimes some of us are lucky enough to get involved in things that are a little bit groundbreaking and changing and have an event. I remember I'm going back a lot further than you when I look at my high school years. But I'm a local as well. I went to Sarah Redfern High School from year 7 through to year 12 in Minto, as did my wife. And my wife and I, we weren't going out together then, but we had the honour of being involved in the foundation of the peer support program. As it was back then. And it's a really great feeling when you get involved in something where you're able to try and help the lives and the pathways of other people, especially young adults, which is great, fantastic. So, we know about your youth there, and you sort of got this lend to having some natural leadership. Before we move on to where I want to get to further in the interview, let's talk about Rise Above. So how did Rise Above come about? And just explain to our listeners and viewers what Rise Above actually is.
Yeah, so Rise Above is a local community organisation that we created in 2015. So after working from 2011 in community with young people, with families, I started to see there was a need for my work extended just from me doing work at Catholic Education Office. So I was doing a lot of weekend stuff, a lot of evenings work, and I needed to also be able to, I can't always be under my full-time role banner. I was doing, extracurricular activities, as you were saying. So I wanted to create something that aligned perfectly with some of the need that I was seeing, but also was an extension of me personally wanting to help our community. And so the Rise in Rise Above, what Rise Above is, so the RISE is respect, inspire, support, and encourage. So that's the mission foundation. That's what underpins everything that Rise Above is. So respecting, inspiring, supporting, encouraging families, and with a focus obviously on our youth in all different facets of their life. It's not just one part of it. It's wherever we see at the time. So it's evolved in time. From 2015, I was running programs that were about resilience and body image with some young people, and getting some personal trainers involved and running some of those programs. But then it shifted to now more recently, which I'll probably further go into as we chat, business support and helping organizations and branching out and partnership networks. So it's shifted and evolved in time, which is what I like. I like being in all my community service work. I like being fluid in that so that we can adapt to change. Things like COVID, we never expected it, so we just have to adapt, as you know. So that's what I like about it. It's not one set thing that we're just working purely on this. We can be quite fluid in what we need to do.
Yeah, which is great. So I've actually sort of set it down for a question later, but I'll bring that in now, as soon as you bring that up. So how does then Rise Above assist other local charities in that space?
Yeah, excellent. So one of our main, at the moment, especially during COVID, partners is the Mandra Project down at Lamia, and you might have heard of some of the great work that they do. So we've been assisting with deliveries. We have a ute that we purchased earlier this year to help families and support other organisations, sporting clubs, whatever it may be. So we've been supporting La Mandra as well as a few others that we've connected with. We Are Community, Hume Housing, list goes on. There's been various connections there. There's been a few that we've obviously helped that we can't name for some reasons, obviously for privacy reasons, but there's been various families, and we don't want to name them. That's not about what we do. We love helping people in the background, and nobody has to know about that. That's the beauty of it. But some of those services that are out there, and I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. Like, I don't believe that we need to keep going and creating a new service every time. I think Macarthur has an abundance of wonderful people that are doing such great work, and I think our job, where we have identified it, is Rise Above comes in and assists in that, and especially on the side of marketing, social media, making sure we have crisp social media and marketing to help those organizations, not for us, just purely to project what their mission is and what they're doing in our community, because that's going to reach a lot more families that need that assistance and a lot more other organizations that can partner with. So we've been able to partner other organizations. So in some terms, we're that middleman, I guess, to connecting those organizations, and then also delivering some of their services and helping them out, whether that's deliveries to people's doors, contactless, or whatever it may be. But that's where we kind of seen our niche in the last year or two is stepping into that middleman role and doing that. And between my wife and myself sort of managing that and how we do that around our family life. But it's our passion. It's both of our passions. That's what we love doing. We both work with young people, and this is what we love.
Yeah, it's great, which is fantastic. And just so everybody knows, like, you didn't approach me for the interview. I only found out about Rise Above and Josh Cotter because of the work you're doing behind the scenes for, and you mentioned before, We Are Community, when I was interviewing Paul Macon. So, and they do absolutely fantastic work, as do Lamandra and all these other groups. And you're right, there are so many people, and most of them volunteer-based. That do absolutely fantastic work for our community. So I commend you on that. I saw the photos on your social media of the youth that you bought to help these other organisations do their deliveries, etc. So that, which is absolutely a fantastic, practical response to a need in the community, which is great. We have, you talk about youth a lot, but we have an ageing population here in Macarthur as well. So how do we ensure then, and there's a lot of pressure on services for older people, right? So how do we ensure then that our older generation have access to the care facilities and social connection that they need?
I think really building upon the foundations that our older people and I like to say experience that they have over a number of years, building upon that. So connecting, and I like to say bridging the gap between our young people and our older generation is very important. And I think there's some really great programs out there that I've seen. I've actually run some programs myself where we've had young people come in, and this is a few years ago now, come into some of our retirement villages or nursing homes and help those older people with some of the basic technology stuff or social media, or paying their bills, some of the most simple things, but also for that social connection, like you spoke about there, is they just love hearing about some of the stuff that young people are doing and families are doing. And they may not have a family themselves, or they may have a family that's living far away, so they aren't able to have that face-to-face connection sometimes. So I think building upon their experience and getting our young people to connect from that. And I think that's really important for our young people too, because it helps them draw some inspiration from our older generation, and they listen to some of their wisdom in that time. And it may be a half an hour session that you go for, but I've seen young people that have sat down, spoken to an older person, they walked out of there and go, Josh, like, something that he or she had said to me just really resonated with me. And it's something that I'm going to take into my schoolwork. It's something that I'm taking to my, full-time work or university or TAFE or whatever it is. It's something that, struck a chord there with them. And I think that's really important. And if our young people have that compassion towards our older generation, I think as young leaders are coming through, young leaders that I interact with all the time, and they become our decision makers going into the future, I think in the back of their mind, they will always have that compassion for our older people to make sure those services are there, that infrastructure is there, and to make sure that they're not just left to the side and we're just pushing through with this new modern young ideology, that we've got. So I think it's important, and we have so much history and heritage in our Macarthur region, and our young people and our young people are able to draw upon that from our older people, because they have stories, about various different things. And I've sat down with a lot of our older generation over a number of years now and listened to some of those stories, and they're amazing, some of those stories. And like I said, you can draw so much inspiration from that. So I think if we can continue bridging that gap between our young people and our older people, and making sure that there is that constant connection going forward, I think we can continue supporting them.
Yeah, great response. And you're right. Experience, knowledge, wisdom, these are all things that younger people can get from our older generation. Social connection, life, just the energy that our older generation can get from the youth of today, and hope as well. Yeah, because when they connect with the younger people, they can see that there's hope for the next generation coming through, because there's some 100%. Incredibly talented young people that are coming through our system. Just depends on whether we know how to communicate with them or not. I think exactly is a big part of that, right? So the purpose of today was really about Rise Above, but I can't talk about Josh Cotter Rise Above without talking about what's coming up for Josh Cotter. So let's talk. You didn't ask me to do this, so I just want to make that clear to everybody. But you are running for election on the Campbelltown City Council, which I believe is the 4th of December this year. Got postponed.
That's correct. Yeah, got postponed. Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, for me, just talking to you now, it just seems like a natural progression from what you did in high school through to your workspace to Rise Above, that whole community basis. But let's talk about your missions and objectives if you were to be elected into that space.
Yeah, no, that's no worries at all. I actually started this journey as well back in 2012. Started getting involved with politics and really wanting to put my foot forward to make a change and represent young people and have more representation of young people on council. And that's where this whole political side of things started. And I don't like to use the word political, because I just believe that local council is an extension of community service, and that's how I look at it. I'm just another community member, just like everybody else, a father and a husband just in our community, and a volunteer. And that's how I look at it. It's just an extension of that community work. I don't look at it as, I'm standing up here and I'm leading everyone. I don't like to use that word sometimes about leading. I believe it's standing next to people, working hand in hand, especially with our local organizations, sporting clubs and everything else. And that's really important to me.
Josh, that's called leadership, right? There's a big difference between leading and leadership, right?
Yeah, correct. 100%. And that journey started then, and I have been in a few elections now and have missed out by small amounts in those elections. And being an independent now, moving into this next election, Paul Lake, who's the leader of our Community First team, is retiring. So I've taken over the leadership of the Community First team as an independent party. And Paul has years of experience as a former mayor as well on our council, and has done various things for our community. And the same thing we were just talking about, I've been able to draw on his experience and the foundations of his work. And that has taught me a lot over the years. And like I said, right from the start of this interview, of when I failed, even with the school captain, the same things happened in this process. Is I've failed in this process of getting onto council, and that's driven me more to do more and to get more involved and to connect with more people. And that's where this inspiration to get onto council and be that young representative comes from. So leading up to December 4th, we've been doing a lot of work in the background, and it's our work. Like I said to you, I don't go and run a political campaign as such. Of course, I start talking about the political side of things and how to vote and everything else leading up to it. But my political campaign is not about politics at all. It's about my service to community and helping people. That's all it is. So we just continue the work we've been doing for years. That's what we're building upon, is just being able to do that. And if I get into that civic role, is just hopefully extend that further and be able to represent our families, our businesses, our organizations on that civic level and take it to the next step. And I guess we have it's a really simple, document that we use and that we talk about, and it's called our Improve Plan. And we use that in our previous elections as something that I came up with in consultation with young people and with our families and everything else. And our Improve Plan, it's really simple. It's the I is independent and in balanced council. The M is maximising Campbelltown's potential. The P is people, our greatest asset. R is roads and infrastructure. O is our community safety. V is value our sport and recreational facilities. And E is environment protection. So it's really simple. I can obviously go into each of those, but we don't have enough time to go into each of those today. But really simple, we call it our improved plan. I don't like to have big policies and this and that. It's local council at the end of the day. And like I said before, I love to be fluid in things that I'm doing so that we can adapt to whatever the need is. If someone comes and says to me, we need help with the local park down the road for access, for wheelchair access, for example, on a concrete path, something so simple that we can get done. We just be fluid in that. There doesn't need to be a policy around that as such. It just needs to be talked to the civil works team and get some of that stuff done and put it through, because they're a need that a local family needs. Simple things like that can make a big difference. And I don't want it to be, have these big sort of named policies. And that's the benefit of being independent and being able to be of service to community. That's really important to me, is to have that independent and balanced council, so we can be adaptable and we can get out there and get our hands dirty and be there, not just stand there for a photo opportunity. I want to be involved, come there if there's a community project going on, is come there with my gloves and my shovel and steel cap boots and get in there and do some laboring work for the day, because that's genuinely helping people. It's not just standing there for a photo sometimes. And that's really important to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you've nailed it on the head when you're talking about being independent. It allows you to take the politics out of it, rather than towing party lines and that sort of stuff, and do what you're actually all about and what your history is about, even though you're still relatively young, is just get boots on ground and get in and help people. So which is fantastic. So I'm going to ask you a couple of personal ones now, not too personal, but we'll just move away from community first and rise above. Who has been your greatest inspiration and why?
Okay, so it's probably three facets to this. So definitely with growing up and going through school and everything else and leading to the work that I do now has been my father. My dad's been involved with community and youth, especially around the time of the Macquarie riots. He's a police officer of 25 years and has done a lot of work in there and has had commendations from the Prime Minister and in the work that he's done. So that definitely drew my inspiration from him, where he did so much work, and I started to gain that passion for working with young people and said, this is where I want to take that next step. And then the other side to it when I was growing up, obviously, is my organizational skills, communication has all come from my mum. Definitely, her being a professional and a manager in HR, that's definitely come from her side of it. And then I guess over the last 10 years being with my wife, I have definitely drawn a lot of inspiration in where we bounce off each other. We do a lot of our community stuff together, hand in hand. And Jess is an exceptional woman that works in foster care as a case manager in foster care and does a lot of work with young people as well. So I've drawn a lot of inspiration bouncing off each other from there. So I guess that's a three-faceted answer. But yeah, my dad probably is that biggest inspiration for my work coming through. But that's probably the three facets of that answer.
That's a very politically correct answer too. No, isn't it fantastic you can draw inspiration from so close to home, which is awesome. And three great different areas separated amongst those, so which is good. What was your favourite movie as a child?
Favourite movies would be Fast and the Furious, because I'm a massive car fan and love my cars. So Fast and the Furious, definitely, and anything with Denzel Washington in it. I love Denzel Washington, and he's a great social activist outside of his movies as well. So I guess I draw from that, but definitely probably Fast and the Furious, all the Fast and the Furious movies, except probably the more recent ones where they've gotten a little bit too much action and not about the cars. So
the comic book stories, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
Denzel Washington. The only one you don't want to replicate of Denzel's is Deja Vu, right? So leading up to this election, we want to break that one.
100%.
I'm a big fan of Denzel too. So Training Day. If someone was to play you in a movie, who would it be?
If someone was to play me in a movie, who would it be? That's a great question. I guess you stumped me on that one. Honestly,
It's funny, you know, some people go straight to the leading actors.
yeah,
You know, I had Sal Sard from Esteemed Carpet Cleaning on last week. His
yeah,
interview's just gone to air today,
yeah.
and I made sure that he wasn't going to say Joe Pesci because he looks like a a little angry man. You know, no, he's
I
great.
probably would say, and this is not, and I can tell you this right off the bat, definitely not for the muscles and any of that side of things, but I like what Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is about in terms of his inspiration and the way his marketing and social media is just insane. And I believe he's a social activist too, in terms of wanting change and standing up for people, and especially working with young people. He's got a very deep connection with working with young people, and especially working when he's on traveling for movies. He visits hospitals, and sometimes it's only for 5 minutes, but it's just to bring a smile to a young person's face. And I've drawn, when I'm working with young people in my programs, I've drawn a lot of inspiration from him and told some of his stories. So definitely him, but I don't look anything like him. I'm never going to look like him.
No.
Definitely not that. But I think some parts of where he is, maybe he could play me in a bit of a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about Dwayne is that, like all of us, he gets faced with failure. You know, for anybody to be able to do a movie like The Tooth Fairy and then bounce back and have a stellar career after that, you got to take your hat off to them.
Correct. Yeah. And where his production company is called $7 Productions. I love his stories because he failed so badly that he literally had $7 in his pocket, and he was able to build up to what he is now. And I like that part of it as well.
Yeah, love those inspirational stories. Okay, we're going to run off with quick 9 last questions. All right.
Yep.
Used to be 10. I took one out. So, what is your favourite word?
Respect.
Love it. What is your least favourite word?
Hate.
Mine too. What turns you on?
Car exhaust.
I'll tell you about my little project later. What turns you off?
Disrespect.
What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise. Anything sort of music related with a good beat.
Doof music.
Yeah.
That's coming from an old guy, right? What sound or noise do you hate?
Rain.
It's interesting. My wife loves the sound of rain.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I don't know about attempt, but probably something to do with cars, I guess, but maybe something completely left field as well that would be completely different to what I'm doing now. So I don't know. It may be just going out and working in the outback or something like that, just something completely left field.
Escape from it all. What profession would you not like to do?
Not like to do. Probably being a chef. I probably do a barbie and everything else, but my wife's definitely the one that cooks amazing food. So yeah, probably I wouldn't be doing there. Too much pressure for me.
It's funny, you know, 90% of people say politics on that one. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Thank you for maybe being an inspiration to others to help them also maybe try and get up here.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Josh, how can people connect with Josh Cotter and Rise Above?
Easiest probably way is Facebook, just on Josh Cotter Rise Above on there, or josh.riseabove@gmail.com if you want to send me an email. And then I can always organise a call, anything else to get connected. But yeah, that's probably the 2 easiest ways.
Fantastic, mate. We wish you all the best in the upcoming elections. Keep doing the great work that you're doing out in the community. I know a lot of people respect you and love you for the work that yourself and your wife do. And I'm certainly very, very pleased to have been able to have this conversation with you. Have a great week, and I hope to catch up with you sometime soon.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. And thank you for creating this initiative. We need more things like this to talk to our organisations, our young people, our families. So thank you for the work you're doing as well.
No worries. Thanks, Josh. Cheers, mate.
Thanks.